Bulavinaka and warm Pacific greetings. Today we witness history unfold. Emotions ran high, tears and cheers of joys were heard at the central city here in The Hague. The world's highest legal authority, a ruling has been delivered that echoes across time and tide. The ICJ has spoken, and it's a message that is loud and clear. Climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is a matter of law, of justice, and of human rights.
With regard to the duty to prevent significant harm to the environment, the Court considers that it also applies to the climate system, which is an integral and vitally important part of the environment and which must be protected for present and future generations. There are two main elements of this duty: the environmental harm to be prevented and due diligence as the required standard of conduct.
It confirms what Pacific Islanders have long cried out for, from disappearing shorelines and storm-hit villages. Climate change is a violation of our rights, our cultures, and our very existence.
In the Rutuman language means mother. And this song talks about how we take from our
Tonight, however, we take you through this legal milestone, not just as observers, but as the people who helped make this happen.
Where's Sahil? He left. Okay, let's eat. Is this yours? How are you feeling
Sahil.
today?
I don't know, I'm suddenly feeling cold.
Don't be sick, Tisha. Can't afford that.
If I do, I'll
What do
send
you
you
mean?
all my scripts.
What do you mean if I do?
I'll send you all my scripts.
One of the lesson that sort of started the conversation was when we learn about human rights, the nexus between human rights and climate change. That sort of shift the perspective from seeing it as a climate crisis itself, but seeing it as a human rights crisis. And then we learn about inter-American courts, the advisory opinion from inter-American courts. This was going towards the end of the semester, it's like half of the year. Our lecturer gave us an exercise or challenged us because the PIFs was around in August around 2019 Tuvalu, and so our lecturer challenged us to find out a legal, ambitious one that we can actually propose to our leaders, especially the ones that are meeting at the PIFs. We were also inspired by the island nation of Palau, who had a similar initiative, but they were looking from it from an angle of transboundary harm, of what's our state's obligation in terms of transboundary harm, more specifically. And so with the lessons in terms of nexus between human rights and climate change, and then this advisory opinion, we sort of had this idea to also seek an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice to follow that part too.
Well, it's been a good journey. I think a long journey, but I'm happy with the journey as well. I think it's been tough. It's been difficult at moments, but working with the people that we have had in this campaign and working for the region has been rewarding. And so, yeah, it's been good, I think.
This morning was an emotional moment for the Pacific team, just soaking in the fact that more than 6 years they started this campaign, and now that it has grown to a global movement led by young people, forged by young people, supported by the region, the leaders, and changed the hearts of those in the global community. This isn't just a ruling. It's a Pacific victory. We have John here with us, and we've just finished listening to the advisory opinion. It's a win, Pacific. And John, being one of the youth advocates here on the ground, by the way, great singing today. What's the feeling?
Sense of humility and gratefulness for everything that happened. Very, very grateful to have shared space with, with all of the young people, all of the youths that have worked so hard to get to this outcome, and so I'm very humbled to be there to share space with them. Also, a big acknowledgement to the Pacific Island students fighting for climate change. They've been on that journey, and I've closely followed them, and I'm a big support of them. Again, today was just the cherry on the cupcake, we can say, but it's also laid the foundations for the next chapter or the next journey. What's gonna happen afterwards? Yeah.
And I think everybody now can breathe a sigh of relief. Everybody can sleep better and rejuvenate and get back into the groove of things, because there's still a lot of work to do. But the important thing is that all of the thematic areas that needed to be covered were covered. In fact, most of the leaders that were here from Vanuatu, even our Pacific leaders who were here, all said that it was the decision of the advisory opinion today went way above their expectations, and it's amazing, and we look forward to more of this coming, this sort of advisory opinion, and there are predictions that there might be more cases like this coming as well, but one of the things that they're really looking forward to now is to unpack all of that advisory opinion and what it means to the Pacific and how they can move forward with that. And also the UNFCCC COP30 that is around the corner. It'll be very interesting to find out how they're going to use the advisory opinion today to be able to use it as a tool to drive action on UNFCCC COP sessions. It began in a classroom in Vanuatu. 27 Pacific Law students, young warriors for climate justice, dared to ask questions that would change history. Can international law protect us from climate change? 6 or more years that you guys have been fighting alongside, pushing and challenging and just fighting for international recognition on what the climate, climate change is impacting and what's the guidelines or legalities around that for clarity's purposes. How are you feeling today?
It's a great question. I think for me personally, it's relief. You mentioned 6 years, and it's been 6 years of nonstop campaigning, not just PSFCC, but of course our other partners as well. So much sacrifice has been poured into this campaign from different parts, from the local communities, grassroots, up to regional to international. And this today, the anxiety is slowly moving away, and it's a relief that we finally get to understand, finally get to see what those sacrifices amounted to.
I have the honor to address you as President of the Pacific Islands Students Fighting Climate Change, the youth organization that began the campaign to bring climate change before you.
That spark lit a fire across the region and across the globe. It led to years of advocacy, diplomacy, and leadership from Pacific Island nations, especially Vanuatu, supported by the Pacific Island students fighting for climate change and a global coalition. This morning at The Hague, those same students stood side by side, anxious and hopeful. They bowed their heads in prayer, they held each other's hands, and then the decision came.
I think one of the really important things is that it's not good enough just to be a party to a convention. It's not good enough just to have an NDC to say that you're going to set rules of mitigation for your country and then not actually follow through with them, or even worse, step backwards. I think the law has been articulated very clearly that not only do you have to set your NDCs and fairly at your biggest possible effort try to achieve those and actually report on those clearly, but for every NDC that you put forward, you have to do better the next time, and you have to make sure that that is in line with at the very least 1.5 degrees as a goal under Paris. I think the other thing that was really important in relation to the science is that the court acknowledged that even 1.5 degrees is unsafe for many countries, and we know that those are our countries and our communities. And so I think the acknowledgement that even at 1.5 degrees, that level of unsafeness for our people means that they can now seek reparations if they can provide the links, the causation to climate change, and the fact that the courts very clearly said the science has already proven that greenhouse gas emissions are causing climate change, which is causing these harms. So that causal link has already been made. It's now a matter for the degree to which that is unfolding in our communities and countries, but that is such a big win for our region and the world.
Well, Pacific Island peoples, you have been so strong on climate change. You're the voice that the whole world listens to. I mean, the Pacific Islanders are the moral authority when it comes to climate change, and we make such strong statements, and all of us, throughout the community. It's not just some people; it's all of society in the Pacific, and this is really a validation of everything we've been saying and everything we've been fighting for. To have it validated at the ICJ, which is the world's highest court, they're saying yes, you've been right all along, and what you've been calling for is right, legally, international, according to customary law, international law. So really, it's a great validation for all of the peoples of the Pacific today.
Nice to see you smiling.
I know. We can finally breathe a sigh of relief.
I mean, from this morning's, like anxious looks and deep breaths and all of that, how are you feeling?
Very, very happy, very glad, and of course very relieved that the opinion has been so strong. The opinion has been everything we asked for and more, and the ICJ has really delivered.
Well, back then I never imagined it actually happened. It was almost like this wild dream that we could possibly do it. And, we thought, why not? Youthful energy and ambition. So yeah, let's try. And we did try. And surprisingly and amazingly, we got here. Thanks to all the support, the international solidarity we got, and especially the youth climate justice movement, which mobilized all over the world to push all states to, in March last year, to unanimously refer this to the ICJ.
It has been a very emotional week leading up to it, but the advisory opinion handed down by the International Court of Justice has really brought a calmness to how I feel at the moment. So a range of emotions, but a feeling of peace and calmness as well. I'm very happy, obviously. If I have to be honest, I came in with a little trepidation because, of course, it's such a sensitive and politically charged issue. And so I wanted to temper my expectations. But after today's advisory opinion, I am over the moon, if I have to be honest. So what this advisory opinion means is that diving and swimming with whales off the coast of Tonga is not just an experience that I will enjoy, but future generations will enjoy. Because if we address climate change, those whales will remain off the coast of Tonga, and future generations can enjoy that amazing experience.
The highest court in the world has acknowledged that the science is very clear. Climate change is already impacting them, and that every increment that happens is creating more and more harm, not just for the generations now, but those into the future, and that is not acceptable under international law. And parties to the convention and parties in general to international law that relates to human rights and the right of people to a healthy environment will be held accountable.
This is not just a legal journey. It is a story of our Pacific resistance, of leadership, of love for our islands. And the Pacific has always led with heart. Today, it leads with law. This ruling wasn't symbolic, it was specific, it was powerful and grounded in science and international law. And here's what the court declared. Number one, states must protect the climate system. Now, this is not a matter of charity, it is a legal duty. Number two, the court relied on climate science. They drew directly from the IPCC reports confirming that exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius warming would be catastrophic, especially for small island states. This is the first time the court gave such clear weight to science in climate law. Number three, countries must submit stronger NDCs, climate pledges, over time. So that means no more vague promises. Each NDC must be more ambitious than the last. Number four, states must cooperate. Climate change is a shared problem, and under the Paris Agreement, UNCLOS, and human rights law, so is the responsibility to act. And number five, climate change violates human rights. The court actually connected emissions to the erosion of the right to life, health, food, water, housing, and culture. And for us Pacific Islanders, this is profound. Why? Because when seawalls crumble, when ancestral burial grounds vanish beneath the tide, that's not just environmental loss, that's a legal harm, a human harm. And for the first time ever, the court is saying climate harm is legal harm. This opinion gives legal weight to what Pacific people have lived and said for decades. For the Pacific, this moment is a turning point. Because for the first time, the international legal system has recognized what our villagers, our elders, and our youth have long known. And that is, inaction is not just negligence, it is injustice. And for us in the Pacific, we are no longer only moral leaders, we are now legal leaders. This ruling gives us strength to push for loss and damage compensation, demand for climate finance, especially for adaptation, our rights to stay on our islands with dignity, culture, and sovereignty. And in a region such as ours, where the ocean threatens to swallow history, this ruling anchors us in international law.
One of the key ones is, states are responsible for the private actors that cause global greenhouse gas emissions in their territories by their failure to regulate properly, and that such conduct is an internationally wrongful act that requires reparations for the damage caused. That's a very clear argument that we have been making, but now we have the legal backup for it. The fact that the ICJ made the very clear statement about sea level rise for Pacific Island countries, the fact that regardless of what happens to our baselines, the territory as established under previous international law exists. That's really great for so many of Pacific Islands who've been fighting for this to be recognized at international level, and we just got the highest recognition possible. And I think the unanimity of the decision was pretty amazing to have these judges from all different countries of the world, including the high emitters, all unanimously making such a strong decision. Shows it's a moment of hope for multilateralism in this current time when it seems it's falling apart. This is a great moment of hope for the youth particularly.
The ICJ didn't just explain the law, it issued a roadmap. And here's what the states must do from now on. 1, they must submit stronger climate targets. NDCs must reflect ambition. Weak targets could now be challenged in court. Number 2, cooperate or be in breach of international law. Climate is not a domestic issue, it is a global obligation. 3, treat mitigation and adaptation as legal duties, not development options, obligations. Number 4, Developed countries must do more. The court echoed the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, acknowledging historic polluters must lead. And number 5, protect future generations in law. So, what does that mean? This isn't just about now. The court placed responsibilities on states and ensure that intergenerational equity exists in the future. So, in other words, this ruling puts teeth behind climate law. It holds countries accountable not just to the realities, but to their people.
We've just been given a powerful advisory opinion. It's now thinking about what are the next steps. COP30 is a no-brainer. I think it's going to be extremely important and significant. The first COP will be going into with an advisory opinion, and that's when with such a strong opinion, it would mean that we definitely have to strategize and get our plans in order to ensure that what the ICJ said, the transformational pronouncements of the ICJ, are reflected in the negotiation tables, in the decision text at COP30 and beyond. And so the work will continue. But of course, I'm sure there'll be a moment of celebration and some break, hopefully.
So, what comes next, you might add? Everyone is looking towards COP and how that's going to be an interesting year this year. The advisory opinion isn't just binding, but it is authoritative. And it will shape legal cases from youth suing governments to island states defending their survival. This is a case of precedents. Constitutions and laws embedding climate rights, international frameworks, UN negotiations, including COP summits, and climate financing frameworks. What it also does is it also strengthens other Pacific legal efforts, like the ITLAW's advisory opinion on oceans and climate, the push to criminalize ecocide, the growing movement to bring climate justice into courts, led by youth, indigenous voices, and vulnerable nations. The Pacific now holds the law, not just the moral high ground, but a legal ground. This ruling won't stop the tides from tomorrow. It won't bring back the homes already lost or the ancestors that are displaced by rising seas. But what it does do is it gives us something that we've never had at this level before. And that is legal clarity, legal grounding, and legal power. And it all started with Pacific Island youths. It's been more than 6 years of campaigning. You know, there's been a lot of sleepless nights and also hard work. So hard work still continues, I know. But what's the plan straight after this?
I think we've been meaning to go back to a lot of the communities we borrowed stories from. This campaign was always about it's always advocated for human rights because you're literally centering humans in the solution, the search for a solution. And I think what happens next for us is taking back, for a change, some good news to communities. They have been a part of the process, the submissions process. From the very beginning, they've been part of the support system that PSFCC laid since 2019. And I think for change, we get to take back some good news to these communities, to our families back home, that we can claim a win for climate justice. We hopefully have set a very healthy standard, healthy blueprint that can be replicated again and again. In terms of ambition, of course, but also garnering success. And there is a demand for the understanding that this is a duty of care that goes beyond legal, especially for us in the Pacific. This is something that's lasted a millennia of generations in the Pacific and across the world, the duty of care for our lands and seas. And in recognizing that the right amount of ambition and accountability can be drawn out from our youth, and it is their responsibility. They have in their hands the opportunity to dictate what future they get to inherit, and it starts with understanding what role you play in this fight for climate justice.
I feel relieved. I think this marks a real moment of hope for our kids. And I
what I really loved about not just the clarity of law that the court has brought to the table, but the call from them to other professions of science, of economics, of human rights, of just common decency, that law by itself is not going to change things. As individuals, we have to step up and we have to do better, not just individually, but collectively. And I think our kids need to hear that.
Any message for your kids back home and for the women of the Pacific back home?
Yes. So my children told me when I came here that there better be a decent outcome, especially my 10-year-old son who said, "You've been doing this for 30 years now, so how come the adults are not listening to you? Maybe we need to bring the children to the table." And I think what this does is paves the way for exactly the voices of young people to be heard. Adults take a lot longer to reach consensus than kids. And I think this really helps us bring in that next generation. We've heard very clearly here that there is an intergenerational equity responsibility, and we cannot have that conversation without bringing that generation into the discourse on climate change in a meaningful way.
From classrooms to courtrooms in The Hague, the world has heard us. Our call for justice has been answered and proven that cries of our people broke through the cold walls of the world's highest court and made them deliver a historical advisory, one that has never been seen before, proving once again that when the Pacific calls, it is not empty words, but one that is binded with the love of its people, its land, and the ocean. And the world heeds the call and mobilize. So as we look forward towards COP30, towards legal accountability, towards climate finance and real action, we go forward not alone, but with a judgment in hand. The tide of justice is rising, and the Pacific will continue to rise with it. History today has been made. This is Sera Sefeti reporting from The Hague.